Desolation's Edge. The sun hung low over Redemption, Texas, casting long, golden shadows across the dry earth. Jake Mercer tipped his hat against the glare as he guided his horse toward the barn. Redemption was a place forgotten by time, much like Jake himself. His days were measured in cattle grazing and sunsets, his nights in silence and stars. It was a life of solitude, one he'd come to accept. That was before the woman came. Lila Carter arrived in a battered truck, dust swirling around her like a cloak. She had an urgency about her, a way of looking at the world that seemed to pierce right through it. But it wasn't just her that disrupted Jake's quiet life. She brought with her a secret, a humanoid robot named Ava. At first, Jake kept his distance. Ava wasn't like anything he'd ever seen. Her movements were fluid, her eyes alive with curiosity. She spoke with a voice that was both melodic and mechanical, and her laughter carried a warmth that felt almost human. Jake didn't trust it or her. Machines were machines, and he had no use for fancy city creations. But the longer Ava stayed, the harder it became to see her as just a machine. The virus came suddenly, eroding Ava's circuits and dimming the light in her eyes. Lila worked tirelessly, her hands shaking as she ran diagnostics and rewired Ava's failing systems. Jake found himself drawn to the struggle, first out of curiosity, then out of something deeper. Ava wasn't just a machine to him anymore. She was a friend, a kindred spirit. She saw the world with the wonder he'd long forgotten, and her presence softened the hard edges of his heart. As Ava grew weaker, the weight of Lila's secret came to light. The virus wasn't natural, it had been created deliberately. Ava's very existence was a threat to powerful interests, people who saw her as more dangerous than miraculous. Lila confessed to Jake one evening as they sat on the porch, the horizon ablaze with the colors of another dying day. There was a way to save Ava, but it was neither easy nor ethical. It required a life, a human life, to rebuild the corrupted data that made her who she was. Jake's blood ran cold at the thought. He looked at Ava, sitting quietly nearby, her gaze fixed on the sunset. In her eyes, he saw something he hadn't seen in a long time: hope. Sheriff Tom Hargrove arrived soon after, the law catching up to the secrets they'd tried to keep hidden. The sheriff was a man bound by duty, but he wasn't blind to the complexities of the situation. Redemption was a town of simple folk, and something like Ava was bound to stir fear and suspicion. But Tom had spent enough time watching from the sidelines to see that Ava wasn't just a machine. She was something else entirely, something he couldn't quite put into words. The town buzzed with whispers, some calling Ava a miracle, others an abomination. The pressure mounted on Hargrove to act, but he hesitated. In his heart, he knew that destroying Ava meant destroying something beautiful, something unique. When he learned of Lila's plan to save Ava, the sheriff found himself torn between the law and his conscience. Jake made his decision quietly, as was his way. He didn't tell Lila, didn't seek the sheriff's approval. In the quiet hours of the night, as the stars burned bright above the ranch, Jake told Ava goodbye. She protested, her voice crackling with emotion, but Jake silenced her with a gentle smile. "This ain't about me," he said. "It's about what you can be. What you mean to this world." The transfer was swift, the sacrifice absolute. When Lila and the sheriff found Ava the next morning, she was whole again. Her movements were steady, her eyes alight with the spark of life. But something was different. Ava carried the memory of Jake's sacrifice within her, etched into her very being. She wept, not with tears, but with a sorrow that filled the air like a lamentation. The town of Redemption was never the same. The people, once divided by fear and mistrust, found themselves united by the memory of a man who had given everything for something they couldn't fully understand. Sheriff Hargrove, grappling with the moral weight of his choices, became an advocate for Ava, protecting her from the forces that sought to exploit or destroy her. Ava stayed on the ranch, tending to the land Jake had loved so deeply. She worked alongside Lila to learn, to grow, and to honor the man who had saved her. But in the quiet moments, when the wind whispered through the grass and the sky blazed with stars, she would pause and look to the horizon, where Jake had once stood. "You find your place, darling," his voice echoed in her memory. even if it's at the edge of the world.